Hey everybody, happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you are doing, you are safe, you are well, and you are with people you care about who also care for you. If I look a little tired, it's because this week has been particularly challenging here at the channel. We have had, Vi has been off, we've had some other stuff happening. We've had some production schedule changes. I ended up working Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is today, and I will have to work tomorrow and possibly Saturday to get everything squared around. But when I do, we will officially be ahead by like a week and a half, which is a very strange feeling to be sure. But it has just made my brain a little frazzled. So if I'm a little distracted today, you know exactly why. And let's just say I'm glad that the weekend is in sight. So today I want to talk to you about something that has never really popped up in my radar until fairly recently. And it was recalling some conversations I've had with friends who have EVs and their justification for considering switching their EV because the company whose car they currently drive is either stopping making EVs or reducing their EV production. And so now they're like, oh, does that mean I'm not going to be able to get my EV serviced? And it made me wonder, what is your biggest fear today in April 2026, I had to think what month we're in. What's your biggest fear when it comes to your own EV ownership? It could be that you own an e-bike or electric motorbike, or maybe an EV, an electric car, or maybe like a truck or even a van. I want to know what your biggest fear about owning an EV is today. And obviously your fears are going to change depending on where you live in the world. Now, I've spoken to a sizable number of Nissan Leaf owners who are very worried, very fearful of what will happen as charging networks move away from CHAdeMO and towards NACS. So right now, certainly in most of the US and Canada, while NACS is a standard that a lot of automakers are adopting, there are still a large number of CCS charging stations in the wild, and if you still have an original Nissan Leaf with a CHAdeMO inlet, you can buy an adapter. Their reliability is questionable in some ways. I mean, we've had some on the channel before. We've reviewed them. And that is one way to ensure that your CHAdeMO equipped EV can still use a public fast charging station, right? Because the CHAdeMO charging stations are slowly being removed and replaced with CCS and or NACS ones. And that is blocking a lot of people out. One of the fears I have about owning my Vectrex VX1, I know it's not on the road right now, is that level 2 charging stations will be removed. And I've already started to see level 2 charging stations slowly disappear in the greater Portland area. And in the back of my head, I'm like, well, how am I going to charge my bike away from home? If every vehicle is assumed to have CCS fast charging, or NACS fast charging, what does that mean for me, someone who has a vehicle that does not fast charge? What does that say about the future of me owning that bike and using it? And there are lots of bikes, I think, lots of electric motorbikes that don't have fast charging. More, I would argue, than have fast charging. So that is definitely a personal fear of mine. But when it gets sort of further down the line, I think a fear that I've also heard a lot is, well, what about parts availability and after-sales service? And, I have a Chevrolet Bolt EV and a Ford F-150 Lightning, and I feel that both of those vehicles have pretty good aftermarket sales and repair, at least at the moment. The Bolt, yes, it can be difficult to get certain parts. I mean, it took a long time for me to get hold of replacement headlight ballasts for my Bolt, and immediately after getting them, the headlights started working again. So I'm not entirely sure what caused them to stop working, but they're working again now, and I'm not going to question that. So, hey, whatever works, right? We just If it works, you don't touch it. But I do have those spare parts now, should I ever need them in the future. When it comes to the Lightning, well, most of the parts on the Lightning most of the body panels are replaceable with other F-150s that are not electric, and worst case scenario, things have to be modified slightly, but for the most part I'm not super worried about parts becoming unavailable. The only big thing that gets me is the lights, right? So the front and rear lights are very specific to the Lightning. They have different pinouts and they're really freaking expensive. I don't know if any of you have a Lightning or if you've spoken to people who have Lightning, but the rear light clusters on the Lightning are several $1,000s each, not a pair, per light. And so if you have someone run into you, or you accidentally misjudge something when you're backing up and you smash a light, it's expensive. It's going to be expensive to repair. And of course, lights are things that you can't just live with broken. You have to get them replaced, or, risk getting pulled over and having a ticket or worse. So I would say that is probably closer to the top of my fear list. But another fear that I think a lot of EV owners have is that where they live is going to try and make EVs costlier, more expensive even, more costly. That's what I wanted to say. More costly to own. And that means higher taxation on registration fees, or maybe a per mile tax, as we've seen in Aotearoa, New Zealand, as we've seen already in I think Hawaii has a system like that, and Oregon has just passed something similar. So I'm going to have to deal with that in a couple of years. I am probably going to opt for the higher fee and not to have my mileage tracked, but that's just me. So I know that is a fear for a lot of people as well. I'm curious though, what comes to your list of fears. So when I was a little bit younger than I am now, when my kids were still young and living at home, and bear in mind that my youngest is now in her mid-20s, so that will give you a good idea of how long ago it was. There was a book that the kids used to like reading called The Little Bag of Worries, or The Big Bag of Worries, I think it was. And it was about this little girl who went around with this massive bag of worries, of gremlins that were in the bag, right? They were naughty little gremlins. And she sort of lugged them around, and they were behind her everywhere she went, and she had to carry them upstairs. And obviously we all know that is it's not a literal bag of worries. It's a metaphor for, things that you're worried about in your head. And this little girl ends up meeting a kind old lady who says, "Oh, you don't need to worry about that one, that's mine," or we'll send those ones off packing, those little worry gremlins off packing somewhere else. And then she blows a kiss to some of them and they just vanish. And it's a really lovely little book, right? And it's all about how you learn to deal with problems by sharing them and talking to other people about them. And in asking you these questions today, I'm wanting to know what your fears are, so that if you're willing to share them in the comments section, maybe other people can help blow kisses to those problems and make them less of a concern, or at least give you some solutions as to how you can effectively deal with them moving forwards. Anyway, put your thoughts in the down below. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you to the amazing list of Patreon supporters scrolling by on either side right now. They are the reason that I am still here, that the channel is still here. I think I was speaking to my bookkeeper earlier this week, and I said, as a company, we've really been struggling financially this year. And she said, yeah, I've known lots of companies who've had to close up shop. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm not there. And the reason I'm not there is because of you all. But I really could use a little bit more help on Patreon, and also a little bit more help on YouTube. So if you're able, please consider doing that. You can also send us a check to our PO box. You can buy some swag from our swag store. I'm actually wearing one of our swag t-shirts, but I don't want to rip my, don't want to undo my zipper, because my microphone is right here and it will make a horrible noise. So you just have to take my word for it. Also, if you would be so kind as to share our stuff on social media, discuss our posts, LinkedIn, whatever, Bookface, Don't share our stuff on that other place. It's not so good. You can talk to us on Mastodon. You can also reach out to us on Blue Sky, but I will be honest, I'm not on Blue Sky very much because it irks me. I prefer the federated universe. Mastodon is far superior. My opinion, and I know many of you will disagree, but that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. You can also join us on Discord or Fluxer. There are links in the down below. As I said, thanks for joining me. Thanks for being the positive change that we need to see in the world. And until next time, make sure that you tell the important people in your life that they are important to you. And as always, keep evolving.